Half-hearted jug.
It's the walk of the production walk.
Walk of shame.
The walk of shame.
You might do it for the Christmas party.
So good evening from a very gloomy looking Halifax. A very cold.
Cold outside and in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cold in here, isn't it? It's freezing cold.
This is one of the more prestigious rooms. This is the boardroom, now, isn't it? You might
Yeah.
not be able to see that at home, but this is, you know, when we get proper people come, this is the first port of call. But we are very rarely allowed in here, are we? The hallowed inner sanctum of Timeform. That's why it's freezing cold, and that's why we're not quite sure where all the equipment is.
Oh, we've had to sneak in because they've locked. So we're here for the weekend preview anyway. A slightly different one this week because of it being on a Thursday and Friday not being very glamorous. We're going to look at a couple of big races and also talk about some of the big points of the week as well.
Bit of a weekly wrap.
Absolutely.
But we have still got important horses and races to hit on for Saturday and Sunday because it's a really big weekend. Even if we haven't got the biggest names, which again we'll touch on in the next 15 minutes or so. But we're going to have a look back as well as a bit of a look forward. And hopefully set things up nicely for the weekend.
And plug your column while we're at it as well, hopefully.
Well, if I don't, no one else will.
So we'll jump straight into the racing side of it anyway with the Becher Chase. First Grand National Trial of the year, is that right in thinking, yeah?
Yeah.
Over the national fences anyway, and a stellar cast, as you'd imagine, turning up for this. Black Lion at the moment is favourite. Unsurprisingly, really, considering how well he ran in the national.
Yeah.
Is he the obvious starting point here?
Yeah. 16 runners for the Becher. These are the final declarations. This is one race which is cut and dried as far as the participants are concerned. 16 runners. 11 have completed the national course at some stage in some race in the past. And 3 of them have actually won around the national fences. Last year's winner, Vieux en Rouge, as do me, who won the Grand Sefton on this day last year and is now going up in trip. And Highland Lodge as well, he won this race a couple of years ago and he's a regular, isn't he? But you have to start with Black Lion because of how well he ran in the national last year and how well he ran on his reappearance as well. Because on collateral form, he's probably about £60 well in if you take at face value what Bristol Demai did in the Becher Chase, because it was just half a length between those 2 stable companions in the Charlie Hall Chase at Wetherby. So yeah, he's the obvious starting point because of how brilliantly he took to the fences and the track in the national last year. That was just a step too far for him, 4.5 miles.
I think he just didn't stay.
He didn't quite stay. He'd gone with loads of enthusiasm and zest, too much so really to last out. But the beach is 3.25 miles, sort of 3.25 mile way around the Grand National last year. You wouldn't have had any other horse hoping for a betting ticket than him because he was bombing along and jumping brilliant. And you get the impression is that this is his trip. Brilliant reappearance by him, franked since then. This has been his target. So everything is good and everything is right for him, apart from the price. Isn't it? You know, we start by saying it's 16 runners. There are lots of national fence regulars in here. It is a handicap as well at the end of the day. So in theory they are equalised in terms of the chance. And it's not often you see a 16 runner handicap with a horse who's probably 5-2, even 9-4 in some places. So all the positives are outweighed or negated to some extent by that one negative where you're not getting much back for your money. You've got to stake a lot in order to win quite a bit with this horse, and given that it is over the national fences, given the strength in numbers, and given that we've got a lot of horses here who are well practiced over the national fences, it just, you can't help but say that feels short to me. And as we speak on Thursday evening, I'd be staggered if that was 5-2 come Saturday afternoon and off time. It must be more like 7-2, even 4-1, just given the strength in the field. And you often get that, don't you, at this time of the week, in that you get not an artificial favourite, but just an artificially short because he's the headline act. But in the next 48 hours, you will find that people dig more into the race, pull out other horses, and as the support comes for them, he'll probably drift. But lots to be said for him, apart from the price. That's the bottom line.
Anything at the moment at any sort of a price? I look at Rogue Angel. He's a real dour stayer, isn't he? Anyway?
I've got one here. I promise you I've got one. Rogue Angel.
It's called. Read your mind. I didn't even look at your cheat sheet either.
Let's just spell out the positives for him. There aren't many, but you have to take a bit of a flyer. But we started talking about Black Lion in the context of the price, and the context of the price is key with Rogue Angel because in an orthodox handicap you wouldn't really fancy him. But this is an unorthodox set of circumstances, and one which he is used to, because he was only 20 to 1 about for the Becher, isn't he? He was only 20 to 1 in the Grand National last year, when Brian Cooper chose him ahead of several Gigginstown horses. And everything was going pretty well until he belted 4 out. And that was really the point at which he'd had enough. Either his stamina run out or his enthusiasm drained. But up until 4 out, he was prominent, he was enjoying it, and he took to the fences really well. 4 out seems a key point with him, because in this race last year as well, Nick, in the Becher Chase, 4 out was the point at which he decided he'd had enough again, because he smacked that fence last year and faded to finish 10th. So if you do back Rogue Angel, and I'm certainly going to, we'll all be sat together 4 out, just seeing if he gets over it. But the case for him is pretty simple in that he's got national form, he loves the mud as well, and it's going to be really bad ground at Aintree come Saturday. He's only got 10 stone 2, and I know that the handicap is more about the weight carried, and most of us are left cold at Timeform when people start saying nice weight to carry and stuff like that. But this is an unorthodox set of circumstances, and with the ground, with the competition, with the jumping test and the pressures on that, the fact he's only carrying 10 stone 2 does actually count for quite a bit. And he's ridden by Richie McLernan, and why that's significant is just the fact that he's been ridden by claimers ever since his run in the Grand National last year. So it's almost felt like he's made his way towards this. This has been a target for him. Enjoys the ground, got a low weight, has shaped a few times this season like all of that power is intact. Now, if you get your Timeform race card on Saturday, the end of this horse's comment will not fill you with hope. It says, tends to find little and unreliable. Now that's orthodox race in orthodox circumstances. This isn't that. These are extreme circumstances and an unusual type of race for the fences and the track. And it seems to stimulate him, at least to some extent. So it wouldn't take much in terms of an end product to put Rogue Angel right there. And what I'm saying is that we can only talk about this now in conjunction with the prices. There's good cases to be made for The Last Samurai, of course. Vieux-Leon Rouge, last year's winner, of course. But I'd be surprised if Rogue Angel was 20 to 1 in the day, just as I'd be surprised if Black Lion was as short as 9 to 4. I think that Rogue Angel might well be a momentum horse as people piece together the different variables that are in play for him today. So you started with him, you quite like him as well. I certainly like Rogue Angel. Just, at a first pass at the race, he was the one who stood out to me. He's thinking, well, that seems a big price compared to the various positives that he's got going for him with this particular scenario.
Absolutely, could be a bit of value there at 16 to 1. I'd be surprised if he went off at that price. So we'll dash from Aintree to Sandown.
Yeah.
For the big event of the weekend, the Tingle Creek Grade 1 race.
Not as big as we were hoping.
No. Yeah. It's probably a more interesting angle is those that are missing rather than those that are going. But we'll talk about that a bit later on. And perhaps the question here is now with Fox Norton heading the field. How good an opportunity is this for him?
Well, brilliant opportunity for Fox Norton. There's no real fault lines with him, I don't think. He's the sort of horse who is so constant and so consistent that you think he's going to run to his figure probably 9 times out of 10. And if he runs to his figure, from what we know about these, Nick, he's way too good for them. There's £9 difference between him and the next highest in the ratings. But again, we're back to price. It is all factored in. He's about 4 to 7, isn't he, for the Tingle Creek now? A Douvan-less Tingle Creek. But I suppose that there is a case to be made beyond the sort of wearing a mask and going for the each-way value or the value second favourite against him. But this Politologue is a really interesting horse in loads of respects. And the one area which could bring them together is the really testing ground. I think it's already heavy, soft in places on the chase course, and if anything, that's going to be worsened still by Saturday down at Sandown. So here's the thing: Fox Norton, whether it's by design or by planning, he's never really had much exposure on really heavy ground. In fact, the only time he's come up on heavy, when Timeform's called description heavy, he was last of 3, and not quite himself. Politologue, on the other hand, he's been on heavy 3 times and he's won on all those 3 occasions, including at Exeter on his reappearance, where he was pretty clinical, wasn't he, in dealing with San Benedetto and the rest of that Holden Gold Cup field. And I just think that he's really, the signs from Exeter that he's really sort of come of age this year. And can you remember Aintree last year when he fell?
He was going to win,
He
wasn't
tripped up, didn't he? It wasn't really a fall. I mean, it's in the
Mm.
record books as a fall, but he jumped the final fence really well, had the race at his mercy, and sort of stumbled and or tripped.
Baffling, wasn't it?
But his jumping's brilliant, isn't it? His jumping is really, really good. And if you go back and watch any of his videos, what will always strike you is his brilliant jumping. And obviously, Sandown is a track which rewards good jumping. This race, as it's likely to be run, is going to put huge pressure on jumping because we've got Armad, San Benedetto, Charbel, Ordinary World are prominent races. And you know what it's like at Sandown. When they get trapping over 2 miles there, it really increases and adds to the pressure of jumping. So Politologue, he's got the ground, big tick in that box. The jumping, big tick in that box. The way this race is going to run and sort of bring his stamina into play, because he was sort of seen as a 2.5 mile horse once, wasn't he? I think that 2 miles on background is exactly what Politologue wants. So I'm just sort of making the case that the discrepancy between them in ratings, which is £9, and the discrepancy between them in the betting, which is 4-7 versus 3-1, you can chip away at that by saying that everything is right for Politologue, and there's a suspicion from Exeter that he's got a few more pounds in the locker if and when he needs it. So we've lost Douvan, which we'll come to next, but we've still got a really interesting race in prospect. There's nothing wrong with Fox Norton, but there's everything right with Politologue today. And I'm thinking, today or Saturday, and I'm thinking that, again, back to prices, I think this market's going to look a little more like 4-5 Fox Norton, 9-4 Politologue on Saturday. That's just my impressions, yeah. And this is his cup final, isn't it? Fox Norton's got champion chases to win, more so if Altior and Douvan are struggling to get back to peak fitness or peak form. So Fox Norton's got bigger fish to fry even in the Tingle Creek, but Politologue, this is his big day. This is almost his cup final.
Do you think it's a match race here?
Well, there's horses like Charbel, isn't it, who could conceivably make that next graduation. He was a novice last year. He came back in the elite hurdle, didn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't fire his best shot there, but again, that just seems sort of a means to an end to get him here. There's a case being made for him. Armad, if he suddenly remembered that he was once a top-class 2 mile chaser, he could make them all go around here.
Likes it at Sandown.
You know, when he's in the zone and on his game, this is his track, and this is the sort of race that he could run riot in. But it's just that you have to be a little bit timid given how fragile he seemed to be over the last 18 months or so. But I just sort of got it in my mind. I can see this race envisaging, and they're going fast up front, and Politologue just jumping, finding that rhythm, and being a real danger to Fox Norton, probably more so than our ratings can express, because ratings can only tell you the achievements and accomplishments of a horse's. We've got P's and symbols to try and sort of shape you in the direction this horse is going, but I think that on this ground, with the run of the race as it is, at this track, Politologue is going to chip away at that £9 he's got to find with Fox Norton on Timeform ratings.
So the big elephant in the Tingle Creek room is a certain Mr. Willie Mullins. We had Undersow and Douvan entered. Neither are going to make the trip over. Douvan, obviously, the big disappointment. Do you think it's a fair question to ask if we'll ever see the same horse again with Douvan?
Yeah, that's a fair question. That is a fair question. Because this first sign isn't good in that everything seemed to be set out for him to reappear in the Tingle Creek. This was a plan that was in the offing and in the action probably months and months ago. And as we got near the race, even sort of earlier in the week, the noise and the bulletins were that, everything was on song. And then, in the make or break piece of work, it sounds like he didn't quite sparkle, whatever the reason. So that is going to leave you a little bit cold. And here's the thing with Douvan. I've got written down show and tell here, because we can tell everyone how brilliant Douvan was, and how brilliant Douvan probably still is, and hopefully still is. Mega ratings, looks imperious. But the show part is that he hasn't actually got the accomplishments on his CV to match his ability. He's won a Supreme and he's won an Arkle, but he's never won a championship race in an open Grade 1 company. So I sort of hope for him that we do see him back and that he does come back. But right now, as things stand, we, with his rating, Willie Mullins as his trainer, Ruby Walsh as regular jockey, are sort of having to speak on his behalf to tell everyone how good he is. And you can get the videos out and watch for yourself, and yes, he's brilliant. But in sort of 50, 100 years' time, if we will be around, but like if someone said Douvan, oh yeah, brilliant horse, and then someone looks up on Wikipedia or whatever the version is there and said, well, you won a Supreme and a Narco. Is that a brilliant horse? So I'm just sort of making the point that time's pressing a little bit now for this horse to get the achievements that his rating and his ability allows, and the early signs aren't good. And it sort of brings us back to the other fella who was in here, in Altior. Can you remember at the end of last season, the one thing we were hoping for and dreaming for and talking about was Douvan against Altior, wasn't it? In a big head-to-head. Douvan hadn't even competed in the Champion Chase, and we were saying, God, imagine when Altior and Douvan, who's going to win that battle? And we've got the two highest rated chasers in training and the two big story makers and sporting generators that are out there. And we haven't seen either of them. We're halfway through the season now, more or less, and we haven't seen either of them. And we're meaning that we're losing that battle and we're losing that ability to showcase the sport to a bigger audience. Now, I don't think that's a little bit cliched and trite. The theory that if you get two high-rated horses, you can sell that to the public and say we're going to have a match bet. That's not it. But even for us within the sport, it's just hard to take that we've got the two best chasers and they're currently on the sidelines. Personally, I think it's odds against the Altior races this season. I genuinely think that, because he's had that problem. There's no timeline involved in his comeback, and we know from Nicky Henderson that these are precious commodities. He will wrap them up and let them tell him when they need to be rather than rush him. So what the sort of upshot with that, Nick, is that the Champion Chase, which was supposed to be the race of 2017-18 season, is sort of off the chart right now and off the list, and we're having to take that off the heat. But fortunately, what we can put on the heat is the Champion Hurdle instead.
What a setup, yeah.
To plan that. Because here we have got two horses, and you could say that Faugheen was in a similar position to Douvan, and look at how he came back, of course. And by the way, we've done studies on this in the past, and there is no better trainer in National Hunt than Willie Mullins at bringing back these horses after an extended absence. He gets them back. He gets them back more than any other trainer out there recently. We've got lots of data to work on there.
I could arguably have just stopped the sentence halfway there.
Yeah. You're probably right there. But but the point I'm trying to make is that, thankfully, because we've got this big showdown, this big head-to-head, which right now is off the table, at least we've got some scraps to throw on that table, and they're more than scraps, aren't they? Because Faugheen came back and said, right, the game's changed now, Buveur there, look what I can still do, threw the balls to him, and then he sort of picked it up and ran with it, didn't he, at Newcastle, and was really good there. So have you got a good feeling about the Faugheen versus Buveur matchup that we're going to have?
I think it'll certainly happen, but personally, I think Faugheen's a world apart, and I mean, you'd be able to tell me better on Timeform ratings and the rest of but visually, it looks like Faugheen's back, and if he is,
well, his comeback was the time and the visual impressions of how he went about it, because we've missed Faugheen, haven't we? And you got the impression that Faugheen has sort of missed racing with the way that he attacked that comeback the other day, and was really good. The facts and figures are these. The facts might be something else, but the figures are these. Faugheen 176, Buveur 170. That translates, Nick, to about 3.5 lengths. So what we're saying right now is that from what we've seen of these horses at their peak so far, Buveur got 3.5 lengths to make up on Faugheen. That's lots of assumptions in that, but at least it's a good barometer and a starting point for the debate. My point with Buveur, more so after watching Newcastle, is this: that if you were to build a science lab at Timeform for all the nerds and geeks that are already here, and say, design me a horse to beat Faugheen, then it would have a lot of the qualities, or almost all of the qualities, that Buveur is showing. And by that I mean slickness of jumping, which Faugheen hasn't always got, and the strength of travelling in terms of going through so much of the race on the bridle. Because Faugheen's magic, just sort of my interpretation, is in that third quarter of a race, he just draws the sting out of every other horse. It comes easy to him. Every other horse, slowly but surely, bit by bit, it's like a syringe where all the energy is drawn out of them, and then he can run away in the finish and sustain that. But Buveur is built to withstand that onslaught better than any other hurdler, certainly currently in training, and probably more than we've seen for a long time. So it's the contrast that are adding to this big duel and big head-to-head that's coming. And just I was really impressed with Buveur there at Newcastle, not with who he beat, but just the way that he went through the race, the enthusiasm, the hunger, and more to the point. I might do an article on this, or we might try and showcase it another time on Facebook or on one of our other many platforms, is that when Faugheen approaches a hurdle wrong, it's a little bit clattering over it. When Buveur there approaches a hurdle wrong, he finds the nimbleness and the athleticism to lose no momentum whatsoever. And it's just small things add up. And when I said that 3.5 lengths is currently what we've got between them, that's probably 2 sloppy leaps versus 2 slick ones, and that division is eroding. So I wouldn't say now. We might get this head-to-head over Christmas, by the way. That might happen in the Christmas hurdle. Of course, it's unlikely because of the nature of the way that the people plan and plot and campaign these horses now. But I think that this is bubbling up really nicely, more so than I was expected, because most of all of Timeform has always been massive Faugheen fans, and I never really thought there'd be a horse around who could touch him if he was at his best. But with what Buveur did in the spring and on his return, I'm thinking that he's definitely in the same ballpark.
Without using too many cliches, is there a potential fly in the ointment, a dark horse that could spoil the party?
I know that most times I say, well, it's interesting you say that, and we've got X, Y and Z over here, but not at all, is there? I mean, definitely Desai was pretty lifeless on his comeback. Mellon, who was second to Supreme last year, has still got £20 to find, even though he made a smooth and successful reappearance. So these two are out on their own, and I think it says a lot about their ability that they are so far ahead of the pack. And even at this stage, we can confidently say, if both get there, this is going to be just a match race between the two of them.
This one, not my 10th year either, then.
No, poor my 10. I love my 10. But if he couldn't win it 18 years ago when he was a 6-year-old, he's not going to win it this season.
Okay, so we'll go from jumps to flat.
From the Sublime.
Well, it depends where you sit in terms of all weather, but there was a real, I'd say, feel-good story this week in terms of Toasting New York, who was brilliant 3 years ago now, has come back after 1,100 days off and won at Lingfield. How good was that? Where do you think he can take this now, and what's the precedent as well for these horses that come back from long layoffs?
Do you know who Megan Trainor is?
Of course, yeah. All about the base, yeah.
Because she was number 1 apparently the last time that Toast of New York ran, in November 2011, and I've never heard of her. But you like her?
Yeah, well, yeah. She's got a song that was massive, all about the base.
Well, that was it. This was number 1.
Being a really sad Wigan Athletic fan, I rewrote that to say all about the boys for Emerson Boys. Yeah.
It's not
too much time on my hands.
Oof.
Yeah.
Did you rate Your Defence is Terrified as well, or not?
No, that was nothing to do. That was Sean Kennedy. That man, he got a free season ticket out of that.
Did he? Yeah. Right.
Was it Sean? No, Keno. Yeah.
I'm more the flat man than the jumps man. But even for me, I don't know. It hasn't really lit any light with me. This Toast of New York. Let's try and sort of put it into context. He was 126th with Timeform when he was a brilliant second, beating a nose, wasn't he, in the Breeders' Cup Classic when Megan Trainor was singing.
Yeah. And
he ran to 110 at Lingfield. So he's quite a large part of the way there. Took a big step towards that. And the other thing with him is that, we would never make physical assertions or definitions of looking at a horse off the TV. But you could tell from just beforehand that he was as big as a bull, and the market told you that as well. I mean, he was 2-1 against when he was beaten, frankly, up against three inferior rivals, inferior rivals.
Drifted like a barge.
So he drifted like a Kontiki. It was clear that he was presumed to need the run, and yet he dealt with it really economically and clinically. Simon Rowlands has said that he's analysed the sectional data, and he covered the last 4 furlongs, I think, in sub 12 second furlongs each time, which shows that he can still run fast. And the sort of sexy part of Toast of New York is this dirt dimension, isn't it? We haven't really had a horse in Britain who can go on the dirt for years, or not that I can remember, and not one that's put his hand up so definitively with the UAE Derby win and that Breeders' Cup Classic second. And suddenly it adds some interest to those races if he goes down that route, a Breeders' Cup in time, a Pegasus before then. So it certainly gives us something to shout about. It was good to see him back. And I suppose that what we'd say from Lingfield is that he's probably ahead of schedule, I think. He's ahead of schedule with what he was able to run to, and I suggested that all of that ability was intact. So, how's Megan Trainor's career gone? Is it still going strong?
Yeah, she did. I can't think of the name of the song. She did one recently. I was asking for a number, and she says no or something. They all sound the same, but yeah. She's an advocate for women everywhere.
Oh, is she?
Yeah,
Woman.
Yeah.
Fine. Well, Toast of New York is an advocate for toast and infertile stallions everywhere.
Was it infertile, or because I didn't? From what I read in the thing, it was like not getting a full book. Is that being infertile?
No, I don't think so. It was just
They set his price rather high, and
I think that he wasn't that attractive as a stallion prospect. I don't think. Maybe it's because of that odd.
Came from nowhere, didn't he?
Odd emergence and unusual state of affairs where his highlight form was on dirt. So he sort of had to appeal to the American market, but they would sort of treat him with a bit of distrust because of the unusual route in and the pedigree. So maybe that's the reason why. But he's back. He was back with a bang. Is all of his ability intact? You'd say there's an 80% chance that it is, given he ran to 110 without really having to dig into all his reserves the other day. So it's a good story for sort of Dubai World Cups, Pegasuses and Breeders' Cups later on, that we've got a proper dirt horse who's hopefully back.
Yeah, well, I'm a massive all-weather geek. I do like the all-weather. So it was nice to see a horse that started off at humble Wolverhampton.
Oh, yeah. And then sort of, there's a nice symmetry to it, wasn't it? That's sort of where it all started and where Chapter 2, or it's probably Chapter 6 now, isn't it? That has kicked in again. So quite exciting, wasn't it? Livened up Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday.
It was a real mundane Wednesday as well.
Frankie unshipped Frankie, didn't he, at the start?
Did he?
Yeah.
Good lad. That's probably that's why he drifted them. So anyway, last but not least, you've written an article this week.
Yeah, I've written an article about we're in that season of Christmas parties, haven't we? So I've taken some of the headline horse from this week and tried to apply them to the stereotypes you find at the Christmas party. Some of them fit nicely, some of them you need an industrial size shoehorn in order to try and make things fit. But you know what I'm like, I just like a different way of looking at horses. But hopefully it sets the scene and paints a picture for what's happening, because let me just say as well, we've got the Gold Cup winner from last season returning, and it's a really good race, the John Durkan Memorial Chase on Sunday, because you haven't looked at this race in depth, have you?
No, I know it's the rematch of last season's blockbuster finish between...
So we've got Sizing John, we've got Jack Adam, who obviously you know well, and we've got Disco, Disko, who's the sort of up-and-comer.
Novice.
Who's the favourite out of those three?
You'd think Sizing John.
I think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
9-4, each of three. At the minute, with some firms, all of those three horses are 9-4. And I think it reflects that Sizing John, this is a grade 1, but his whole season has been geared up towards Christmas and beyond, as it was last year, with great success. So this is just a platform for him rather than the end game. With Jack Adam, he can't win a Gold Cup, can he? He's had 3 goals so far. I really like him, but if he hasn't won one of the last 3 in arguably easier renewals than we're going to have this year, with potentially Might Bite, hopefully a redeemed Thistle Crack, Whisper, other new up-and-coming horses on the scene, that this is really his cup final. And then we've got a fit and firing Disco as well, who's got probably 3 or 4 lengths to make up on those 2, but has got a run behind him, has got a win behind him. And you all know Disco, he sort of goes out and plays catch me if he can, which, with the sort of advantages that he's got, it's going to be hard to do. So Sizing John, Jack Adam and Disco make for a fascinating John Durkan. If he's not favourite, I'll back Jack Adam, because I think he's maligned, much maligned, this horse. You know the Giant Bolster?
Yeah.
I mean, he finished 2nd, 3rd and 4th in 3 Gold Cups, and everyone sort of has an outpouring of praise and happiness of the giant bolster. Jack Adams finished second and fourth in 3 Gold Cups, and everyone thinks he's like the pantomime baddie, don't they? So I feel a bit sorry for him. It's a lot to do with sort of what he promised to be and who he represents as well. But he's won this race the last 2 years, first time out both times. It is more or less his cup final, the point I was trying to make with Politolog as well. So it's a big day for him. We could have another potential Gold Cup horse running in Ireland at the weekend, and that's the Acapella Bourgeois, you know. Acapella Bourgeois. So Total Recall won the... What did you call that race last week?
Oh, I get them all mixed up, me. The Ladbrokes Trophy.
Ladbrokes Trophy.
Yeah.
It went from Sandra Hughes to William Mullins, went off 2-1 in the Munster National. 2-1 in the Munster National, won by half the track, and followed up in the Ladbrokes Trophy.
Just.
The other horse, Acapella Bourgeois, made the same switch from Sandra Hughes to Willie Mullins, achieved more than Total Recall did in his season with Sandra Hughes last year. Looked a really good horse at times in flashes. And he was 7-4 on the Troy Town when he only got as far as the 7th, but it's clear that all the signals were that this horse is sort of doing similar things to Total Recall and was considered to be ahead of his mark. So he gets a redemption shot at Navan on Saturday. He'll win that.
You've called him a certainty in your article.
There's nothing big or clever about that, but you know, he's going to be 11-8, and everyone's going to say, "Oh, it's too short in the handicap," and then he just blitzed them. If he gets around, he'll just win, won't he? Because look at what Mullins has done to Total Recall, and this is even better material to work with. And it's not out of the question that Acapella Bourgeois might find himself in races such as the Gold Cups or versions thereof in the future. We got Top Notch running in the Becher Chase as well.
Yeah.
Great horse he is.
Could be the race.
Many Clouds Chase.
Many Clouds Chase. Yeah, and I think Hemmings has got 2 in that at the moment as well. So
that would
be nice. Yeah.
Cloudy Dream then.
Cloudy Dream and Vicente, although they might not both be declared.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't chuck Cloudy Dream in the Tingle Creek. I don't know if that's a big statement, but this morning when there was only 4 in, Cloudy Dream would have been a juicy inclusion.
He got his card marked though didn't he, by Fox Norton?
He did.
On soft ground at Cheltenham, although Brian Hughes wasn't too complimentary, was he? So which, out of all those we talked about, which race or horse are you most looking forward to seeing this weekend?
Well, I'm going to venture to Aintree on Saturday, so I'll stay true and...
Will you stand just before the 4th last and shout, "Get over it, Rogue"? Is going towards it, because that seems to be a blind spot in his mind. So if he can clear so I think that I'm really looking forward to the John Durkin, because we see the Gold Cup winner. I'm really looking forward to what Acapella Bourgeois might do. But in financial terms, which is what most people tune in for, I would say one horse that you might back now is Rogue Angel, because he's 16-20-1. And just looking at the potential upside for him in this race, I think he's more like a 8 or 10-1 shot.
Okay.
Good.
Absolutely stunned you didn't say Disco could have all the right moves. I was waiting for that one.
I'll leave that sort of tribe to you now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Who's up next week?
Mr. Dan Barber.
Oh, well, you got a proper person in next week.